Did you know that intimacy after 60 can actually become deeper, more satisfying, and emotionally powerful than at any other stage of life? That's right. While society often whispers that passion fades with age, the reality is almost the opposite. For many seniors, this chapter of life opens the door to a kind of closeness that's more honest, playful, and emotionally fulfilling than anything they experienced in their 20s or 30s. Yet hardly anyone talks about it. Think about it. After decades of living, you've gained wisdom, patience, and a stronger sense of who you are. You no longer have the same pressures of raising kids, climbing careers, or proving yourself. That freedom allows intimacy to transform into something richer, deeper, and far more personal. What's surprising is that research now shows more seniors are reporting increased satisfaction in their intimate lives. But they're also struggling against stereotypes that tell them they should give up on desire altogether. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt that people assume intimacy has an expiration date? Or that your own desires are somehow less valid just because of your age? If so, you're not alone. And that's exactly why this conversation matters. Today we're going to break open the silence, challenge those tired myths, and show you the truth about intimacy after 60 that no one ever tells you. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll see why this stage of life may just hold your most meaningful experiences yet. Meet Marlon Grayson. Marlon Grayson is not the kind of man you'd expect to struggle with intimacy. At 68, he carries himself with the quiet confidence of someone who's lived fully. For decades, Marlon was a jazz saxophonist, traveling across the country, filling smoky clubs and dim-lit theaters with the kind of music that made people close their eyes and sway. To his audience, he was vibrant, magnetic, and endlessly alive. But behind the music, a quieter story was unfolding. When Marlon retired, the touring stopped, the stages went silent, and suddenly, the energy that once fueled his life seemed to fade. His body began to change. Slower movements, a few health scares, a softer belly he once joked about but now avoided in the mirror. He loved his wife, Clara, deeply. They had been partners for over 40 years, but somewhere along the way, intimacy had become a topic they danced around instead of embraced. He worried silently, was this it? Were the most passionate years already behind me? Marlon's story is unusual not because he was a musician, but because it reflects a reality so many seniors never voice. He felt a mix of hope and hesitation. Hope because part of him still longed for connection, the late-night laughter, the warmth of being held close, the spark that once came effortlessly. Hesitation because everywhere he looked, society whispered that intimacy was for the young. Commercials celebrated wrinkle-free skin and fast cars, but no one spoke openly about desire after 60. One evening, sitting on his porch with Clara, Marlon admitted his fear. I miss us. Not just the music or the traveling, but us. I don't want to believe we're done. That small confession changed everything. Clara smiled, touched his hand, and reminded him that intimacy isn't measured in years, but in moments. By introducing Marlon, we see more than a character. We see the heartbeat of this conversation. He is every man or woman who has quietly wondered if age disqualifies them from desire, every senior who has felt invisible in the world of intimacy, and every soul who still longs for closeness but doesn't know if it's possible. His journey is not just about rediscovering intimacy. It's about rewriting the narrative that aging steals passion. And as you'll see, what Marlon learned next will surprise you, and maybe even inspire you to rethink what's possible in your own story. Unspoken realities. When most people think about intimacy after 60, the first thing that comes to mind is loss. Loss of energy, loss of hormones, loss of desire. But here's what rarely gets said. The changes that come with age don't have to be barriers. In fact, they can open the door to an entirely new kind of closeness that many couples never experience in their younger years. Let's start with hormones. Yes, testosterone and estrogen levels naturally decline with age. For some, that means less urgency, fewer automatic sparks. But that shift also removes the pressure of performance. Instead of intimacy being a physical reflex, it becomes a conscious choice, one that's slower, more intentional, and more deeply felt. Seniors often describe this stage as moving from heat to warmth, a kind of steady, glowing connection that lasts longer and carries more meaning. Then there's body image. Wrinkles, gray hair, and softer skin can make people shy away from intimacy, fearing they're no longer attractive. But here's the hidden truth. Many seniors find their partners more beautiful than ever because those lines tell a story. They represent decades of shared laughter, struggles overcome, and love that has weathered storms. In fact, intimacy often grows when couples stop chasing perfection and embrace authenticity. That's something younger generations often never achieve. And perhaps the most overlooked reality: emotional vulnerability. With age comes experience. You've lived through loss, triumph, joy, and heartbreak. All of that history makes intimacy richer because it's not just about physical closeness. It's about being seen and accepted exactly as you are. Studies today even show that seniors who nurture this kind of emotional openness report higher satisfaction in their relationships than many younger couples. So what does this mean for you? It means that intimacy after 60 isn't a faded echo of the past. It's a transformation. It's no longer about quick performance or unrealistic expectations. It's about deep connection, humor, presence, and trust. When you let go of what intimacy should look like and embrace what it can look like now, you open the door to experiences that are not just satisfying, but profoundly healing. Now here's the part that surprises most people. The challenges you once thought were obstacles, slower pace, health changes, shifting bodies, can actually become the very things that bring you closer. And as we'll see with Marlon's story, learning to accept and celebrate these realities is what turned his fears into the most meaningful chapter of his intimate life. Breaking myths and hidden struggles. One of the hardest truths about intimacy after 60 isn't the physical changes. It's the myths that society forces on seniors. For decades, television, movies, and even advertisements have painted a picture that desire belongs only to the young. As if turning 60, 70, or even 80 suddenly disqualifies you from romance, touch, and passion. That silent message seeps into the minds of older adults until they begin to wonder, is something wrong with me for still wanting intimacy? Let's break that myth wide open. Wanting connection, affection, and yes, physical intimacy doesn't have an expiration date. Desire is human. And it doesn't stop because the candles on your birthday cake keep adding up. Yet many seniors carry a quiet fear of rejection. They worry that if they express their needs, their partner might laugh, dismiss them, or even feel uncomfortable. That fear keeps conversations locked away, leaving both people feeling distant even while sitting side by side. Then there's shame around health conditions. Whether it's diabetes, arthritis, menopause symptoms, or the effects of medication, these realities can make seniors feel less than. But here's what rarely gets said. These conditions don't have to end intimacy. They can reshape it. In fact, many couples find that by adapting, they discover forms of closeness they'd never explored before. And the most unspoken struggle of all: feeling too old. This thought creeps in when someone avoids a mirror, pulls away when their partner reaches out, or quietly convinces themselves that they should just settle down and stop wanting. But the truth is, wanting to feel desired, to be held, and to share warmth is not childish, shameful, or inappropriate. It is a fundamental human need, one that lasts as long as life itself. Here's where I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt that society overlooks your desires after 60? Share your thoughts below. This isn't just about breaking silence. It's about creating a space where seniors can finally speak openly without judgment. So the next time you catch yourself thinking you're too old for intimacy, remember this: age doesn't erase desire, it refines it. And as we move forward, you'll see how shifting from fear to honesty was exactly what helped Marlon and Clara reclaim a kind of passion they thought was gone forever. The new language of intimacy. When Marlon first began to open up about his fears, he expected intimacy to be about trying harder, doing more, or proving he could still perform like he did in his younger years. But what he and Clara discovered was far more surprising. The most powerful form of intimacy at their age wasn't about speed or performance. It was about presence. Think about it. In youth, passion often comes with urgency, rushing toward the destination. But after 60, intimacy transforms into something slower, gentler, and yet, paradoxically, more profound. A lingering touch on the arm, a shared laugh about something silly, or simply holding eye contact across the dinner table. These small, intentional gestures become the sparks that reignite desire. For Marlon and Clara, it started with storytelling. After dinner, instead of turning on the television, they began to share memories. Those forgotten moments of when they first met, the nervous energy of their first kiss, the adventures on the road when Marlon's saxophone carried them from city to city. As they relived these stories, they found themselves reaching for each other more often, laughing like teenagers, rediscovering the joy of playfulness. And here's the secret many couples overlook. Humor is one of the strongest tools for intimacy. When you can laugh together, especially about the changes that come with age, you replace shame with acceptance. A chuckle about creaky knees or forgetting where the glasses are isn't a weakness. It's a bond. Marlon and Clara learned that laughing in bed was just as important as anything else. Then there's emotional trust. At this stage of life, vulnerability becomes a gift. Saying, "I feel nervous," or "I want to try something new," creates a safety net where both partners feel free to explore without judgment. Marlon realized that intimacy wasn't about recreating the past. It was about writing a new chapter, one where slowness and honesty created a kind of passion that felt brand new. But here's the twist. What Marlon discovered next wasn't just about touch or laughter. It was something most couples overlook, and it completely changed how he and Clara approached intimacy forever. Practical, actionable advice. Marlon's big realization was that intimacy didn't have to look the way it used to. Instead of chasing the old rhythm, he and Clara created a new one, rooted in presence, creativity, and honesty. And here's where you can begin writing your own version of that story. The first step is open conversation. It may sound simple, but many couples avoid talking about intimacy altogether. Start with gentle honesty. Say, "I miss being close to you," or "I'd like us to explore more ways of connecting." These aren't confrontations. They're invitations. Marlon and Clara began with short evening talks on their porch, sharing what they each longed for, and discovered that their desires were far more aligned than they ever imagined. Next, explore new ways of affection. Intimacy isn't confined to the bedroom. For seniors, gestures of closeness can be even more powerful when they happen throughout the day. Dancing slowly in the living room to an old favorite song, taking a warm bath together, or even holding hands on a late-night walk can rekindle a spark that lingers long after. Marlon and Clara made it a ritual to dance once a week. No audience, no judgment, just music, movement, and laughter. Then there's the often overlooked step, addressing health openly. Many seniors shy away from this, but being honest with a doctor about medications, joint pain, or hormone changes can unlock solutions that restore both comfort and confidence. Sometimes, small adjustments like better sleep routines, gentle exercise, or medical guidance make all the difference. Clara encouraged Marlon to bring his concerns to his doctor, and what seemed like obstacles quickly became manageable. Finally, remember that intimacy thrives on playfulness and patience. Try a new activity together, share your dreams, even experiment with touch in new ways, without pressure or expectation. Give yourself permission to slow down, to laugh, and to savor each moment instead of rushing to a goal. The truth is, intimacy after 60 isn't about keeping up. It's about redefining connection in ways that fit who you are now. And when you take these small, intentional steps, you'll discover that desire doesn't fade with age. It transforms. And just when Marlon thought he had reached the limit of rediscovery, what came next surprised him even more. Because intimacy, as he learned, is not just about what you do. It's about who you become together. For Marlon, the shift didn't happen overnight. At first, every step felt uncertain. Should he even bring up intimacy? Would Clara think he was being unrealistic, or worse, selfish? But the moment he chose to speak honestly, the weight he had been carrying for years began to lift. And slowly, fear gave way to freedom. The couple started small. Evening talks on the porch turned into shared dances in the living room. A hesitant handhold while walking turned into late-night laughter in the kitchen as they made tea together. These tiny, intentional moments stitched a new rhythm into their days, one that was gentler but also more adventurous. Marlon realized that intimacy wasn't about proving anything. It was about rediscovering the joy of simply being with Clara. And something unexpected happened. The more he embraced this slower, more connected version of intimacy, the more confident he became. No longer worried about performance or comparison, Marlon found himself free to try new things. Cooking a meal together, reading poetry aloud, even exploring different ways of touch without the fear of getting it wrong. The pressure melted away, replaced by curiosity and play. Clara, too, felt the difference. Instead of fearing that her husband saw her as less attractive with age, she felt cherished, truly seen in a way that went beyond appearances. Together, they realized that intimacy after 60 isn't about holding on to the past. It's about creating something new that's just as powerful, if not more so. And that's the real takeaway. After 60, sex isn't ending, it's evolving. It becomes less about the urgency of youth and more about the richness of connection. It becomes a language of presence, trust, and joy. For Marlon and Clara, intimacy was no longer limited to a single setting or definition. It expanded into their everyday lives, filling the gaps that once felt empty. So if you've ever wondered whether passion has an expiration date, Marlon's story proves otherwise. The truth is, intimacy after 60 is not a fading flame. It's a fire that burns differently, steadier, and sometimes brighter than ever before. And now, it's your turn to consider. What new chapter of intimacy could you begin writing today? Your story doesn't stop here, it deepens. Too often, seniors are told to fade quietly into the background, as if love, passion, and intimacy belong to younger generations. But Marlon's journey shows us something powerful. Life after 60 is not the end of connection. It's the beginning of a new chapter. And now, that invitation extends to you. Take a moment to reflect. Have you ever silenced your own desires because you thought they weren't appropriate for your age? Have you ever avoided speaking up out of fear that your partner, or even society, wouldn't understand? So, you are not alone. Millions of seniors in the United States carry those same unspoken fears. But here's the truth. Your needs are valid, your feelings are real, and your capacity for intimacy has not disappeared. It has simply evolved into something deeper, more soulful, and more enduring. This is why we created this channel, Senior Relationships After 60. To break the silence, to give voice to the unspoken, and to remind you that you are never too old to rediscover passion. If Marlon and Clara could find their way back to closeness after years of hesitation, imagine what could happen in your own life if you gave yourself permission to explore again. Now I want to hear from you. What resonated most with you in Marlon's story? Do you see pieces of yourself in his journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I promise you won't be the only one. And when you share your voice, you help others feel less alone. If this video touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button because every like helps this message reach more seniors who need to hear it. Share it with a friend, a partner, or even a family member who may be struggling in silence. You never know whose life you might change with one simple share. And finally, subscribe to this channel. Not because it's just another YouTube channel, but because together, we're building a community that refuses to let age define the boundaries of love and intimacy. We'll keep bringing you the truths no one else is telling seniors, stories that reflect your reality, and advice that empowers you to embrace life fully. Remember, your story isn't winding down, it's unfolding. And the next chapter is waiting for you to turn the page.